love our intro.
We say that every time.
I do. Y'all, what's going on? Welcome back. We are talking about body image tonight, and of course, we're all dressed to impress and talk about body image. Before we even jump in, I want to know how you guys are doing.
First of all, you got some cleavage coming out your shirt there, Mr. Aaron, Dr. Aaron.
You got the girls out over there.
The girls out to play. They are ready. Jeremiah, you got some girls coming out to play too. If I see some ink, I see some all kinds of stuff going on over there. It looks good.
You have to unmute yourself, Jeremiah, so we can hear you.
So you guys, hey everyone. Yeah, I was saying, Josh, that I have this new tattoo that it's kind of weird to even see it on camera because it's so new that sometimes I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, who's that guy?
It's great. It's great.
Yes, I'm tatted up over here a little bit, just a little bit, just a little. Yes.
Is it a midlife crisis?
What are you saying?
I said, would it be a midlife crisis for me to get a tattoo at my age? Is that, or do people do that?
No. Listen, we're talking about bodies. Your body. It's your body. You can do whatever you want with it.
That's what I like to hear.
I agree.
Good. Hey, so let's jump in. We are talking about body image in the gay community. And I know that this topic is a topic that everybody wants to talk about. Everybody, is excited to jump in and talk about. So let's jump in. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right. Cool. All right. So first question, guys. How would you describe your body?
I say I am the little man. So if you look at all my family members, really, like most of them are below 5'9". Like 5'7" is like a tall person in my family. Most of the men have tried to marry women with like some taller genes, and that might happen, but it doesn't. No. But it's so funny. I tell people we are all built like my grandmother, and it's like these little bodies with these nice arms. Like all the men have big forearms and nice legs, and then we got a little pot belly. Everybody got a little pot belly. It's just no matter how many sit-ups you do, or you starve yourself, you got a little, it's a little dad bod. It is what it is. And big heads. That's our bodies. Yes.
I love it.
I saw this question. I was like, I don't know how to answer this because I think I'll be the first to tell you, I think I have some body dysmorphia. I was a fat kid. That's something I've been sort of overcoming most of my adult life. So when I look in the mirror, if I was to describe what I saw, probably be a little bit different from what you would say. And I only go from like, what my friends say when I'm complaining. Oh my God, I look fat. They're like, are you serious right now? It's a little annoying to them, but there are times when you struggle with weight throughout your life, up and down, that you kind of carry that with you no matter how fit you get, no matter how much weight you lose or what size you can fit into. I think that's something you never really completely get rid of.
Yeah.
Well, I will say though, Jeremiah, I love my little pot belly and my small frame. So I get no complaints, even when I was single and dating.
That's right.
Complaints. Okay. So,
I say that all the time to patients who are like beating themselves up about, oh, I've gained 20 pounds. I said, listen, when I was at my heaviest, I was getting laid. When I was at my skinniest, I was getting laid. There's someone out there for you. There's someone who likes that. So whatever you are, there's someone out there for you.
Yeah. Preach.
Yeah.
Josh, what about you?
I mean, I think gay men in general have some degree of body dysmorphia. We all do. Every single person that I've worked with in my practice, I certainly, I look back at pictures of myself, 10 years ago, and I'm like, damn, he looked pretty good. But that is not how I felt at that time. I looked in the mirror and I would either see, to this or to that, or, when I'm looking at myself naked in the mirror, I've worked really hard to try to see something positive and say something positive. But my mind always goes to, dang, I never have had that 6-pack that I've always wanted. I'm going to get that 6-pack before I die. At some point, I just want it for one summer and then I'll let it go. And that's just not the men in my family, unless we have some kind of, that's just not how we look. And there are other parts of the body of the men in my family that, we do pretty well, so it just, but I think for me, it is a conscious choice to see something positive. Otherwise it's right straight to the negative.
Yeah. I tell my dating coaching clients, like, you have to pick out like different parts of your body that you love, right?
Yes.
And like find clothing that fits, that gets to show that off. And like you said, Josh, a conscious effort just to be like, oh, I love this part about my body. Yeah. It exudes good energy.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yo, it's so funny because I was Steve Urkel. You can tell by the glasses. I was Steve Urkel when I was younger. And then, later on, I became Stefan. Ha. No. No, real talk. I've always had some body image issues. And, I was the little skinny kid and so on and so forth. So I got into the gym and so on and so forth. And I was like, okay, I'm going to dispel that myth of being the skinny kid. And now I am the skinny kid who put on a little weight with some crazy ass glasses. And that has stuck with me throughout, my teenage years all the way up until now.
I'll say this too, on top of kind of going back to what Josh said, everyone has some body dysmorphia.
Yes.
Show me someone who doesn't. I've seen the fittest people who have an 8-pack. And they're like, well, I'm really trying to go for a little leaner, or I want a little bit more muscle, or I want to gain a little bit more weight. People are never happy, including me. Most people, we're just always going to try to get to the next step. So I think part of that is just learning to embrace where you're at and starting to love your body a little bit more wherever you're at.
Yeah. 100%.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, guys. So this leads us or puts us into our next question. What narratives do you say about your body? Like, what's the story you're telling?
Yeah. I'll say, especially in the summertime, I am a freckle person. And, I'm less concerned about it now than I used to be, but I always wanted to be like tan, bronze, and I wanted to like have, and my skin that's just not who I am, And so that's something that especially in the summertime, when I start to show a little more skin and I'm out and about outside and that kind of thing, I start to kind of like compare, like, oh man, I can't, just like sometimes that in terms of my complexion.
What color do you turn?
I mean, there can be a little bit of a bronze, especially on the face and the arms, but it's just my freckles just like bang, like whenever I'm out in the sun, especially for the first time in the summer. So it's coming. Yeah. I'm trying to reframe it as like leopard spots or something like that. I know people like to get leopard tattoos. Maybe I'll get a leopard tattoo around my freckles.
Yeah, I think for me, my narratives are typically, like Lamont, centered around my stomach, right? That's been my problem area my whole life. Even when I lost weight and I had, I was leaner, I still had this fat that was like skin, really, that was just sort of pooching down. There was nothing I could do to really get rid of that. So, I've also had negative experiences with guys where I've literally had a guy say, I don't hook up with guys with stomachs or, with the pooch. So that really messes with your mind when someone tells you specifically, there's something specific about your body that is unattractive to me. And that's hard to rewire. And I've been the same person who's like, oh, I got to lose weight. I got to do more crunches. I've got to eat better. I've got to do this and this fad diet. And I've literally had the opposite happen where I went back to someone I kind of liked and I was like, well, I've been working out, I've lost 15 pounds. And he was like, well, I like thicker guys, so I'm not interested. It's crazy.
Jeremiah, to your point, there was a study done that men that have a little bit more of a waist or gut, they last longer in bed.
Ooh.
Look at
'Cause
y'all.
it takes a little longer to find it. Is that why?
They can't find it. No, I didn't say like way over. I'm just like just a little bit more. I guess they last a couple more minutes. It wasn't good.
Okay.
Yeah. Every minute counts.
Yeah.
Say that. Y'all, I don't know if you guys have ever had this issue, especially, and I want to particularly talk to Lamont. I don't know if you've ever had this issue, but growing up in the great state of Louisiana, real talk. So everyone that was considered beautiful was someone who was light skinned. This was when light skin was in. No offense to anybody who's light skinned. So I always was like, the narrative that I had was, if I get a little bit lighter, then I'm going to be considered beautiful.
Yeah, and the Black community, like the closer you are to being white, like so if your skin was more lighter complected or your features were more Eurocentric, then now this is a long time ago, but I do think some of that still lingers, right? But that you are more attractive. And I think I even internalized that sometimes when I was picking different partners. Like I went to date guys who were like my complexion or a little bit lighter, and I would rarely ever date guys who were dark skinned. But like if you look at my husband, it's a picture back there. He is blackity black. Like he is dark skinned. People think he's African or like Geechee. And one of the things with my dating process, was like, I can't find guys who I think are compatible with me. So I opened up my preferences, and I fucking love him. Like I think he's sexy, and like he is the perfect fit for me. Yes.
Well, you know, guys, this is something I've seen in different countries and different cultures. I was very surprised when I was in Mexico last year, and one of the tours I did, the lady was explaining racism within Mexico, and it's all to do with skin color, and the more Eurocentric looking Mexicans have typically better societal positioning. There's even racism against some of the natives. It was mind-blowing to me because I wasn't aware. I just thought, I kind of lumped everyone together, and they certainly don't there. There's definitely skin color has a lot to do with how they view people.
Wow.
And the skin conversation. I mean, that is something that most white people are completely oblivious to. Like, I know, it wasn't until I got into college before somebody brought that to my attention. And I mean, it's like, all y'all are black, or all y'all are Mexican, and that's, I mean, I think that speaks to just sort of the isolation that we have from each other in many ways, which is why we're convened in this particular group to be able to talk about some of these things specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys for saying that because, again, it was a struggle for me, growing up in middle of nowhere, Louisiana, saying, oh my God, if I can be brighter, then people are going to love me and going to like me. This brings us into a really, really, really good question. What is social media saying about our bodies?
I mean, if you look at my Instagram algorithm, I mean, it's cat videos, cheerleading. I don't know why. And like very sexy men. And I'm like, they know me too well. I love cats. I love cheerleading videos, and I love sexy men. So it's like, but those messages, those things that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis, is sort of reiterating some of my own insecurities. These guys are things that I'm not. They're very masculine. They're very hairy. They're very muscular. There's these things that I maybe as a younger gay aspired to be. So I think it says a lot about, what we find attractive, right? And how that sort of is a reflection back on our own insecurities, really.
Yeah. I think social media, I agree. Like you have to be like in tip top shape. Like our gay community, like we have like twinks, we have beers, we have gym bodies. And I think the pecking order, don't cuss me out, is like really like the gym bodies are the gays who go to like circuit parties. Like if a person who was like bigger, doesn't have a six pack, like they feel like they would never ever be welcomed at like a circuit party. They would be like, I'm keeping my shirt on because people will look at them. And I think it like we push people to say, hey, you have to have this body to be, considered attractive.
Yeah.
What I love though is that like a lot of people are pushing back on that now,
Mm-hmm.
where they're like, no, love the body that you're in. And there are pages where there are guys who are really big.
Mm-hmm.
When I say like really big, really big. And they're like, no, this is all, you're going to love all this thickness.
Mm-hmm.
And they put it out there. And there are people who embrace it.
I think to add on to what you're saying, it's just my own observation. I think if you have that kind of body, if you have that muscular build, the six pack, it's sort of an automatic invitation into a social group, right?
Mm.
You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be friendly. You don't have to be cool. You can just stand around and look cute. I've seen it in our own community. I've seen it at pool parties, and I'm like, not to say that those people can't be those things, but I'm just saying it's almost like an automatic, here's your free ticket to the party. Come on in.
Yeah. But, and I'm real curious about this, guys. So does social media to an extent alienate those who are not in that statuesque, six pack, pecs here, arms, whatever? Like, does social media alienate those folks?
I wonder if it comes down, because who doesn't like a beautiful man, and I wonder if the algorithm itself is responding to what I might slow down and take a closer look at in the feed, because I think that's that's a little bit outside my lane in terms of understanding how that works. But my understanding is that the more things that I find myself clicking on or slowing down or commenting on, that's what it brings me more of. And so it's almost like a product of my own making. And the other thing I'll say, about the social media piece is that inevitably, when we're seeing those bodies come across our feed, the comparison starts. I start to think about, oh, my body doesn't quite look like that, or and this comparison thing comes in, which inevitably leads to lower self-esteem if we let it. It's such a detrimental thing, especially to folks in grade school who are getting these messages about their bodies so early. But I know if I'm feeling it, and I'm a mental health professional, I'm fairly well balanced and fairly healthy. Folks who may not have access to the resources that I do, I can't imagine, the suffering that takes place in people's minds about their bodies based on the comparison just that inevitably happens in social media.
Yeah, I think that goes across. That transcends body image. I think that transcends, into classism, into, oh my gosh, this person's always traveling, I'm always working. Or they have a new car, I have a 3-year-old car. I think it's real easy when you look at social media. You have to realize you're looking at everyone's highlight reel, and you don't know what that person did to achieve that kind of body. They're not telling you the whole story, right? It could be on a lot of different things that you're not on, and they don't.
Don't you dare say Ozempic, Jeremiah. Don't you dare say Ozempic.
I push Ozempic on patients. Semaglutide on patients because I think it works well, and I've seen great success. But I do have a problem with someone who's doing like anabolic steroids and getting on there and saying, I work out twice a day and I drink 2 protein shakes a day, and that's what you got to do to do this, to get like this. We're not stupid. Like, well, there was a time I was stupid and I really compared myself to these other people and beat myself up constantly. Like, why don't I look like that? I'm here for 30 minutes longer. I'm doing harder workouts. Like, why can't I look like that? So I think you have to really take it all in perspective. And sometimes you just need to cleanse it all. Like, get off social media. It's not real life.
Yeah, that's right.
But if for your social media feed, and if all these like gym bodies are popping up, I guess the question is, why are you spending more time looking at the gym bodies than other types of bodies?
Ooh, good question. Good question.
Well, why don't you answer the question first, sir?
If my feed that came up, you would see definitely recipes, because my husband and I like to cook different things, places to visit in Atlanta, definitely gay men, like I would say all body types, because I think if you lined up all my exes, they all look different.
Mm-hmm.
Like male, female, none of them look the same. I have been on a weird journey of just like, if you kind of sexy, you got energy, let's see what it look like.
Yeah.
Good point.
Good.
Good point.
So I spend time on different people's pages that look different.
But part of that, well, okay, part of that is that's your job as a matchmaker to try to find all these different kinds of guys, and so the algorithm reflects. Now, if you in your natural habitat were actually going through and drawing, I don't know.
Maybe my private Twitter account or X account may show you something a little different. I don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I want to answer your question though, Lamont. I think that to an extent, we idealize, especially in our community, we idealize a certain type of body, and then, yes, Lamont said female. So we idealize a certain type of body, and then to an extent, we're envious of that type of body, like Jeremiah mentioned. Like, we can spend all day in the damn gym, and we won't get to that particular body, but we're also not recognizing what story, they are actually really telling. So I wanted to bring that up as well.
That's what I said. I think sometimes what we're attracted to is a reflection of our own insecurities.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Good point. I want to pass a collection plate or something, Jeremiah. So moving on to the next question. This is a really good question, y'all. What would your relationships change if your body changed?
I'm going to answer this one first. And I don't know if he was being serious or not, but I need y'all's help if he was. I hypothetically said, if I gained 100 pounds, would you still date me, to my partner? He said, no, you'd be a fat ass and I'd break up with you. I think he was kidding. But the point of that is, he was like, well, I might not be attracted to you. I mean, how do you argue with that? Like, people are attracted to what they're attracted to. So, I don't even know what to do with that. I just threw it out there because of this question. So,
Jeremiah, I would say, been there. My husband has told me, listen, don't get big, right? Like that is a part of our agreement in our relationship. And he said he does not want to be in a relationship with someone who is at a certain size because he feels like there are health issues that come with them. And he's like, I do not want to have to take care of somebody because of their lack of discipline or whatever. But I'm like, well, what if I, get hit by a car, my legs don't work, and I gain weight? And he's like, okay, well, maybe, but if you can intentionally do things and keep yourself healthy and at a certain size, he's like, I would really want you to do that.
Yeah. I mean, this is all hypothetical, and I've actually thought about that myself. And I think after a certain point, when you've been with someone for a period of time, right? And my partner and I, we've been together for over 7 years. Like, I love him. I would like to think I would love him as a person, regardless, right, of his physical appearance. And the same attraction that I got from him when we first started dating is different than the attraction I have now. It's not as intense, right? But the other things that I love about him, I personally don't think it would really change my feelings for him, right?
I agree, because I feel like when I'm 60 or 70, I'm not going to look like this, right? I'm like, you saw what my dad looked like when he was 65 and 60. I'm going to look like that. So you okay with that? And right, like, you okay with that? He's like, I don't know if I don't know how often we gonna have sex, but he's like, I can stick around. Like,
yeah, very good point.
Y'all, let's be real. Let's be honest. Yeah. Think about it. Our skin starts to sag. We get, all these different marks, and we gain weight. We lose weight. Shit starts to happen. Shit doesn't function the way it used to function. Let's be honest. We're not in our 20s anymore, and our bodies are going to change. Yeah. Should that change our relationships? I don't think so. But there are people who believe that if I married you a certain way, or if I loved you a certain way, or when we first met, then I want you to stay that way.
I always say, like, for gay men, we're like so fixated on like sexual positions, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm like, when you with somebody for 30, 40, 50 years, like you said, Aaron, stuff changes, right? And power top may no longer be a power top in his 60s and 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
He might be a little versatile or a bottom at that point. Like stuff changes.
Mm-hmm.
It depends.
It depends. It all depends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and let's also think about this. And Josh, I know that you and I deal with this on a regular basis. Let's think about our members, our penises, our butts. Like that shit changes.
Mm-hmm.
Plastic surgery. maybe not.
But I mean, I'm honest. I guess I want to be honest about sort of what's coming up for me in this conversation. It's a little uncomfortable, I think, to name that I myself am motivated by aesthetically pleasing bodies. I mean, I think that's uncomfortable to admit, at least in the context of what we're talking about here, because I know that there are people out there that are really in a lot of pain over how they look. You know, they just suffer. I've got a number of clients that just really deal with this body dysmorphia, and it really can shrink their world, you know, in terms of what they grant themselves permission to do, you know, and change is inevitable, especially when it comes to the body. We are here for such a limited amount of time. And I can't tell, I mean, this year alone, May got here, I feel like I blinked and all of a sudden we're halfway through 2024. And so our bodies are moving through that time as well. There's this one guy that I dated a while back, who, you know, back when I met him, he was in his mid-20s and we had this sort of hot little fling. And then over the years, we've stayed friends, and he's gotten a little thicker. But because I knew him back then, and, you know, even if we were to connect on a sexual level later on down the road, I still was turned on by him because I remember what he was like back then. And there's something about that. Maybe that goes to kind of what Jeremiah, you were saying, is that there's still an attraction there because there's the shared history, there's this connection, there's the hotness that we remember that we can still, I think, kind of bring back, you know, in our minds. I think there's a lot of creativity that is left on the table when we say, oh, well, I can't, you know, do this, or I'm not willing to do that. Like that, I think that speaks more to one's lack of creativity than anything else.
This kind of brings up some ageism for me in my own experience, right? So I remember being, you know, freshly out in 18, 19, 20. I always found guys in their late 30s, early 40s attractive. That was, in my mind, where a man started to be like in his peak, right? And now I'm 41 and I look around and I still think that. I think men typically start to look their best, for me, in their late 30s through their 40s, all the way into early 50s. My fear is that not going to change as I'm in my 60s? Am I still going to look back and be like, oh, you know, that 40-year-old's really hot? Or does your attraction, and maybe this is for someone older, does your attraction sort of age along with you? Will I be at a club when I'm 65 and look at someone who's 70 and be like, oh, he's attractive? I don't know. That's something that comes up for me.
That's a good point.
I've seen some really, so, you know, I do matchmaking. I've seen some really, really attractive guys who are in their 70s, like 75, and you would not think like they're their age. Like you would like, oh, he's like maybe 50. He's like, no, I'm 69. I'm like, what? Like, I think part of it's genes. Some of it is like your upkeep. But there are guys who look their age, like they look their age appropriately, like in their 60s and their 70s. And I do think if I'm like looking at like their body, I'm going to have to pick a body part that I think is attractive and focus on it. I think there are areas of people's bodies that you might not be attracted to, if we're honest. Like you might say, I don't like this part of their bodies. Like I don't like their arms, but you're attracted to their chest. So I would say sexually, focus on their chest. Wear clothing that situates their chest and something that might, for you, like hide the arms or do something a little different if you're still trying to be like sexually attractive.
Good point. Good points. Okay. All right. Y'all feeling good?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next question. And I think this is kind of similar, but we'll go with it anyway. How often would you say your internal thoughts affect the narrative about others' bodies?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can jump in here, I guess. So I think as you said, it's we kind of touched on this, but my own insecurities about my own bodies, I'm certainly looking at those things in other people. Like,
Yes.
you know, if I see a guy who's like insecure about his stomach, it's not that I'm being judgmental. I'm empathizing. I'm like, oh, I get that. Like, I have love handles and I know what it's like. So I try to wear clothing that's not as clingy around the stomach. So I think I'm projecting my own insecurities about my own body onto other people as well. And also, on the flip side, I've seen people who have love handles, who have a gut, and they're like so confident. I'm like, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I could, you know, embody some of that confidence. I'm over here like focused on this little, you know, pudgy stomach that, you know, this guy's being celebrated for. You know, it's finding your crowd, finding who's into your body, and honestly, a lot of it's confidence. I've seen the biggest guy or whatever, you know, whatever it is, you know, walk into a bar, and because he's confident, because he carries himself well, that's attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like porn has like a huge influence on gay men's like perception about sex and like
Say it.
penis sizes, like what you're, you know, what type of sex you're supposed to have. And I always, you know, look at the porn stars and I'm like, oh, you're supposed to have 12 inches and above, right? Like to be average, right? And anything less than that is like, oh, you got a little dick. Like you can have 8 inches, 10 inches, and that is little, right? So I think I'm always challenging my, you know, perception or things that I've been taught. Like 12 inches is like the standard. You know, whenever I'm picking a partner, I'm like, oh, you ain't got 12 inches, it ain't gonna work, right? But you know, good 8 inches will work as well.
Yeah, I just need to know this. Whose insurance covers 8 inches? Like, is there an insurance policy that, I'm sorry, 12 inches? Is there an insurance policy that covers 12 inches?
I think that you may need that, right?
Yeah, it's a lot.
It depends, I'll say.
Well, yeah,
Which you may be in depends after you take the
Someone finally got my depends joke. Thank you, Aaron. I was really trying to get that joke in there, guys. Really, without being offensive. So we got to joke about it, right? We got to joke about aging because we might be in them one day as well. So
yes, but I don't want to rush the need to be in depends.
You know, something just occurred to me about this question, in terms of masculinity and femininity, and how one presents either more masculine or more feminine. I know when I first came out of the closet, I was super focused on masculine, feminine presenting, how people showed up with their masculinity or femininity. And it was really, and looking back, I know now with confidence that it was about my own comfort level with the way that I presented, because I was super focused on masculine dudes and that's the only ones I was going out with and blah, 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 you know, and the more I made peace and accepted and enjoyed my own fluidity, you know, in terms of presentation, the much less rigid I got about, you know, guys that I would date, guys that I would associate with, guys that I would, you know, seek after for friends or relationship, sex, whatever. And I think the same is probably true for other parts of our bodies as well. Yeah. You know, just, and I'll say just the guys that I'm attracted to are much more broad than they were, you know, 10 years ago or whenever it was, you know, longer than that when I came out. But, you know, that the more I became confident in my own self and comfortable in my own skin, the rigidity sort of evaporated a bit more. I don't know if that's been y'all's experience or not, but.
Well, most people will date who they feel like their parents will accept if they can bring them home.
Yeah.
Preach.
I'll comment on that too. I mean, and this is me being vulnerable. Like, Josh, you've evolved. I haven't. I think the common thread in what I'm attracted to is not just masculine, like a hyper masculine version of a man. And I know that all goes back to my upbringing, Southern West Virginia, Pentecostal. My brother was an All-American athlete, national weightlifting champion. Like, I had all these strong male figures in my life, and it was pointed out at a very early age, you're not that. In fact, you're not only that, you're feminine. You have feminine characteristics. It was pointed out to me throughout my childhood. So I was sort of probably trained in a way to think this was the ideal partner. And what Lamont said, bringing someone back home. In fact, when I met my partner, he is this sort of hyper masculine version. He hunts, he fishes, he was in the army, he has tattoos, like he's hairy, like all these things that would make him masculine. And I thought in my mind, subconsciously, I guess, wow, my family will love him. There's nothing that they can fault me on for bringing this guy home, right? And it went as planned. They loved him. My brother loved him. But then the more I've gotten to know my partner, you know, people often think, well, I'm probably the more high maintenance or feminine one. And then there's certainly qualities about him that I'm like, okay, it takes a lot longer to get ready, or more ready, or he uses more skin products or things like that. That I'm like, he's not this hyper masculine person I thought he was. You know, I want to trade him back in. I'm kidding.
You know, and I'm going to take a page out of your books and really talk about vulnerability here. So when I was in my 20s, long time ago, when I was in my 20s, I used to bottom shame. And if anybody knows what bottom shaming is, it's making fun of those who are considered the receiving partner. And I got called out on it by a lovely, lovely, lovely person who was no longer with us, but a wonderful, wonderful person nonetheless. At any rate, so I had to learn. Now that I'm in my mid-40s, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why am I shaming something that is so beautiful? And that's a part of our bodies. You know, we don't always talk about how beautiful it is, not only to be an insertive partner, but also to be a receptive partner. And I think that now, when we're talking about bodies, this is something that's so prevalent in our community, and it's something that we can, you know, really, really talk about.
My thing is like, it's gay sex. Someone needs to bottom at some point, right?
Yeah, have a top without a bottom.
Right, unless you're a side, like somebody has to do the bending, as they say, at some point.
Yeah.
All right, guys, keeping it rolling. Let's talk about, and you guys, we've all talked about this just a little bit. What is something that is unique about your body that your body does? Any unique marks?
I'm definitely lots of moles. Like, one of the things we have inherited from my great grandmother is that, you know, like Josh said, freckles. We have moles all over, like the face, the chest, and my mother, and my aunt, they have them like a lot on their face, like, and they're like moles that, like, they're not just flat, like they stick out, right? And there's other parts of my body that they're moles that are raised, and and I'm a triplet, and my two other brothers, they have tons of moles too, and we did struggle. Like, growing up, we're like, oh my goodness, what are these horrible moles on our body? Like, what is wrong with us? Because we're like, I don't know. We just thought it was so freakishly weird because the majority of the people in our family had the moles were the women. And we're like, well, wait a minute, how did we end up with the mole gene? So we had to like really learn to like embrace that, like, it's okay to have some moles on your body, and you don't have to be like a porcelain doll where like everything is super smooth and there's no blemishes. Because I think the beautiful thing about being a man is that it's okay to have blemishes. It's okay to have moles, and you don't have to be like smooth and all over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
I agree. I have, and you guys can't see it because it's covered up, but I have right here, as a matter of fact, underneath my left nipple, I have a birthmark. And that birthmark was so a long time ago, I was very, very insecure about my birthmark because it was huge. And I was maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. And so it looked like, really and truthfully, that I was sick, that I had some type of, disease or something. But as I've grown older, it has become, for me, and this is what I tell myself, my narrative is, it has become a beauty mark. It is beautiful and is a part of who I am, and I love it. So thank you guys for allowing me to share that.
I always thought it was hot. I met you 20 years ago, and I always thought it was kind of hot myself.
Oh, thank you, Josh. My partner's going to be like, what the hell?
I knew you before your partner ever knew you, so I don't want to hear it.
I don't know. I'm not even going to ask that question. No. Somebody said they like unique quirks and marks, though.
Yeah.
I don't have anything like that. I mean, I have a birthmark behind my ear, but that's about all. And it's kind of small. And some people have been like, "Oh, you have something behind your ear." I'm like, "No, that's a birthmark," but nothing else really.
I have a double jointed thumb.
Wow.
Really?
What?
Yeah. Me and my brother. My dad has it. My brother has it, and I have it, and my niece has it also. It's a genetic thing. Anyway. Strange.
Aaron, similar to you, like I have a birthmark in my head. Like when I was born, there was like an extra like lump, and like no hair actually grows there. And I will tell you, even into my 30s, I would always take a little marker and color it in, like the little eyeliner stick, right? I'd be like, oh, I didn't get one of these things, so you can't see it. And it really wasn't until I started dating my current husband. He was like, sir, it looks fine. Like he helped me to like really accept, like, you don't need to do that. If people see you have a birthmark, move on. Like, so I literally had stopped coloring it in when I started dating him.
We talked about marks, but I'm real curious. I don't want anybody to curse me out when I ask this question. What are some unique things that our bodies can do or even have done?
I would just say Captain Hook, and I will leave it at that.
Hey. Okay. So you're basically a pirate who's looking for his booty. Is what you're saying.
Absolutely. There you go.
That's two, Jeremiah.
I don't have an answer for you, Aaron. That's a tough one. I think I'm pretty boring.
It's interesting because when we were in our 20s, I know that we had, our teens in our 20s, there were so many things that our bodies can do. So I was curious.
I'll tell you what my knees do when I bend down, they pop every time I bend down.
No. I didn't make
I have to, at my office when I'm seeing patients, there's this one room I go in, and if I'm getting like a certain container out, I have to kind of bend down, and I know it happens every single time. It's both knees, and they make a popping sound, and it was embarrassing because last week it happened. Because I try to avoid it. I'll try to bend over rather than bending down, and the patient was like, wow. He was like, that's loud. It happens every time. It's embarrassing.
Oh, the aging process.
Yeah.
My partner always teases me and says, oh, you're old. I'm like, I can't wait until you're in your 40s so I can make fun of you too. All right. So I am curious about this question. This is a good question. How does the way I look influence my work or even influence my creativity?
Nobody's touching
the first thing that comes to mind is I think that well, I have like a little secret way that I sort of like get myself pumped up and ready to go for the day is I like colorful underwear. And so sometimes some of the underwear gives me a little more confident boost than some of the other ones. And so sometimes if I'm just like needing a little extra, I'll get the camouflage underwear out and I'll put that on, or I'll get, like there's different ones that make me look a little more whatever. And so that's like a little thing that I do, but I do know that colors and the way that I accentuate certain parts of my body sort of give me a little bit of a boost or not. Sometimes if I'm in a hurry and I put something on that I don't think, flatters me as well, sometimes that does kind of reflect my mood a little bit throughout the day, I've noticed. So I do try to be a bit mindful of, kind of what I'm putting on before I go out the door, because I know that's something I've noticed about myself.
I work in primary care, so it's like I have a relationship with a lot of my patients that I've known for years, or I'm getting to know them. So, when I saw this question, I immediately thought about, there are times I'll go into the room and I might be wearing something that's a little tighter, or not even on purpose, but like, okay, those pants are a little bit more, showing the butt off. And, some patients are very, they're not shy about letting you know, hey, your butt looks good. And it's always an awkward position to be in as a provider, because, there's that professional code of conduct. And I guess I work mostly with gay men. So it's like, you get you get that sometimes doing what we do. So I think I'm sort of conscientious of what I'm dressing, how I'm dressing, how that may be presented. And there are certain days I feel more confident in how I look, and I think it translates in more of how I'm interacting with people. If I'm feeling better about myself, I'm going to come in and be a little bit more confident, and I think do my job better, honestly.
Yeah.
It's so funny. The other day, my good friend Javad had a birthday party, and I went to his birthday party. It was a dinner, really. And I took a picture with him and two of my other friends. And most of my friends are 6 feet and above, right? I'm always like the short guy amongst my friends. So I posted like a picture on social media, said, hey, happy birthday, Javad. And oh my goodness, I got so many DMs that said, were like, damn, you're short. Like these are people like, I don't know. Like, they have never communicated with me before. They didn't even say hello or like, how's your day gone or anything. It was just, damn, you're short. And I'm like, what? Right? So the Lamont today would have been like, oh, let me cry or like shrink myself. Years ago, like, because of my height, I would like go into different rooms or go in different places, and I didn't have confidence because I'm like, all these tall people around, right? And it wasn't until I like started to embrace my height and just like, hey, just because you're tall, it does not mean it has anything to do with your character or your intelligence or your ability to do any type of counseling, coaching, anything. It just means you can probably get to the higher cabinet in the kitchen for me if I need something, or maybe it doesn't even mean you can run faster than me, because I can run faster than some tall people, right? Mm-hmm. But it just took me a moment, like for years, to just accept my height and just embrace it. Yeah.
Ooh, that's powerful right there. Mm-hmm. I'll say for me that, I love, and it's so interesting because my partner always says something along the lines of, you're showing too much or whatever. I'm the king of wearing a see-through shirt, real talk. And so for me, it's all about the look, and I will have the glasses, as you guys can see, to match the hat and match the shoes, and the shit will coordinate, and it will hopefully look good. But for me, it's all about the presentation. And so that's how my look influences my creativity.
So you like to jazz it up and, put it on, as they say.
And honestly, I don't mind showing a little bit of something, not necessarily to get me attention, but because I think that I've worked for it. So why not show it off?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the, they say, more attractive people, they don't have to work as hard because people just think because you're attractive that they put all these attributes to you that are positive.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We see that in politics. I mean, if someone's a good speaker and a smooth talker and they look good on camera, they're probably going to beat the other guy who's not as attractive.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely been studies done about children in school. Like the cute kids get treated better. Whatever measure is used to define what cute is in the eyes of the teacher or whatever. I mean, there's been studies done about that.
They say it's called attractive privilege.
Yeah, that somebody posted.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Pretty privileged.
Yeah.
I like that.
So this is a really, really good question, guys. Can I be happy with the way my body looks? Present tense, current.
Yes. I mean, I think I'm like a poster child for this question because I have struggled really. And when I say that to people, they're like, you've struggled. Look at you. You're fit. I'm like, you don't know what I have gone through to get here.
Yes.
I don't want to put it all out there, but I'm talking surgeries, medications, lots of beating myself up, fad diets. And I'm at a place now where I don't look the best that I've certainly in my past, I've had better body. I've been more fit, bigger muscles, leaner, all those things. But I'm the happiest I've ever been right now. And I say that to also say I have a lot more work to do. And none of it has to do with my body, right? It's a lot more of here and loving myself. Even when I have a bad day and I have a cheat day and I want to go get pizza and get cake, I'm still going to love myself on those days. And I've learned to embody that. And I've also learned to share that message with other people.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm happy with my body. I don't have any health issues other than I'm allergic to everything and allergies, right? So, but most of the men in my family die in their 50s, right? That's the longest that they stay around because we have heart disease, all these other issues, high cholesterol, and genetically in our, it's just there. So my thing is, if I don't have to take any medicine for anything other than allergies, I am content in this body because it is giving me what it's doing its job. Whether it goes out a little bit this way or goes in this way, I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's some days yes, some days no, and a lot of it depends on what I'm consuming in terms of social media or other sort of things that I'm putting in my brain, what comparisons I'm drawing to others, or if I'm intentionally setting aside, and porn too, to some extent, setting aside those things, that then I've noticed that I feel healthier and happier about the way I present. But if I'm, and I think in this, I remember Lamont, you and I last year went to the Joining Hearts pool party, and I know some of y'all may have been to that before.
I was topless there.
Yeah, and I for the first time, I think that was the first. Yeah, that I was like, you know what, fuck it, I am wearing my little bikini, and I had the shorts and I had
liberating.
They were little.
It was, I was like, okay, I'm doing this, but I wore the shorts and I wore the tank top just in case. And I walked in and nothing but skin. And I was like, well, I look kind of like an idiot by wearing all this. So I just was like, screw it. I took it all off. And for the first few moments, it was a little okay, I feel naked. I feel a little bit exposed. Everybody's staring. Nobody was staring at me. They were staring at dude over there with the abs. That's who they were staring at. And so once I was able to kind of make peace with, I'm not the hottest guy in the room and I'm not the not hottest guy in the room. So I just rest in where you're at. Yeah. And once I kind of came to that realization, just it became a lot easier, and I became a lot less focused on self and centering of self, and more about the lived experience of what was happening around me. So that was I would chalk that up as a personal win for myself, because I was able for the first time to just let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that time, and I will tell you, like, gut was out, whatever. But I feel like, and the reason why I say I'm happy in this body is because there's always gonna be somebody that like what you get. Okay, there's always gonna be someone saying, "Oh, you're attractive," and that is always, like, I think, a boost for your confidence, right? I'm sure the boys were flirting with Josh.
A few.
Right, hello, right? And you got this little itty bitty underwear, because they were not really swim trunks; they were underwear, and they were still flirting.
Yeah, I appreciated you, Josh. Thank you for sharing that. I was gonna say I appreciated you saying that it sometimes depends on the social media you consumed, other things going on in your life, and it made me think of just like a month or two ago for my birthday. It was when we were in Mexico, and I was feeling good about my body. I had been working out, dieting, and I was like, I felt good on the beach, and I would look in the mirror, and I was telling myself these positive body, affirmations. And we got back, and I looked at the pictures my boyfriend had taken me, and I was like completely devastated, because I was like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me I look like that? Oh my gosh, I'm so fat in that picture. Let's delete it. Like, I completely like melted into this little insecure person. And for a good week, I was going around like feeling my stomach, and like it was obsessive. And I realized in those moments, I still have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do on that.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremiah, you went to PBR?
Actually, I was in Zipolite, which is like Mexico's only legal nude beach. So that was another step for me, guys. That was very liberating to finally disrobe in front of other people who probably don't even care, right? Like you said, Josh, they weren't looking at me. They were looking at everybody else.
I think at the nude beaches, people appreciate all types of bodies. Like,
yes,
it's like one of the places that no matter how you look, people are like, "Hey, what's up?
Right?
It's Tuesday. Got a drink? Pass it." Like, but it's our internal stuff that we're like, I just don't like the way I look. But I think if you put yourself in environments more like that.
Yeah, that for me was a sort of a challenge to myself, because I've been on nude beaches before. I would never, ever go naked, right? And it was this trip that I finally said, sort of what Josh said, I had this internal dialogue, like, why? Why not? Like, why are you holding yourself back from these opportunities? Do this for yourself. Yeah. I'm not a nudist, but do this for yourself, to show yourself that you can do it and everything's going to be okay.
It is. It's so liberating to be on the beach and walking around naked. I think as Americans, we are the only, for the most part, we're the only ones who really castigate others for being nude when the rest of the world is celebrating, your body. I want to say this before we move on to the next question. Josh, I wonder for you if you experience this. I know that in my practice, typically, there's so many of my clients particularly, obviously, experience ED based on the way in which they're thinking about how they show up, how they look, their bodies. Have you experienced that?
Well, say that last part again. They experience what?
So a lot of my clients experience ED or some type of performance concerns based on the way in which they feel about their bodies.
Oh yeah. It's. I think we talked about this maybe in one of the first two episodes. We were talking about eggplant and cake, if you recall, where there's this certain. I sometimes it's an overt, sometimes it's a little bit more subliminal sort of feeling like I don't have the right to enjoy pleasure if my body is a certain way. But I'm not entitled to being sexually active if I'm not, on top of my gym game or whatever it is. And it does affect libido for a lot of folks, or at least their willingness to engage in sex. And the anxiety is the number one boner killer, as we said before. And so, if somebody's feeling anxious about their body or whatever, anxiety is the thing that tells the body, oh, shoot, something's not right. We need to reappropriate the flow of blood to prepare for fight, flight, or freeze. And so the body thinks that it's trying to help, but that's kind of the opposite effect of what we're looking for in a situation like that. But yeah, Aaron, tell me about, what you hear in your practice as well.
All the time. I hear a lot, especially my younger clients who are saying that I'm fat. I am, not attractive. I have, marks here and there. And what they're saying is I don't have the worthiness, as you mentioned, to be able to perform sexually. And so they get into the narrative, they spin the narrative in their heads that, I'm not attractive, so therefore I can't have sex. And that is something that typically they, carry on through their sexual experiences, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have the best sex when you feel the best about yourself. And
Yes.
getting there, regardless of your body type, size, size of your penis, how big or small it is, how much weight you're carrying. And I think part of that is finding someone who loves you for you, right? Like, you don't need to change for anybody else. They like a small penis and a big butt, or they like a gut, and there are guys out there who love that kind of stuff. There are forums and message boards and things like that for you to find exactly what you got and someone who wants it.
Yep.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jeremiah. Like, when guys sign up for my matchmaking business, they're like, oh, do you think, Josh and I do matchmaking. They're like, do you think I need to lose weight before I'm dateable? And I'm like,
yeah,
no, let's find you a guy who appreciates the body that you have now. And that way, if anything changes, that is just icing on the cake. But you want someone to be able to see you for who you are. And they say, hey, I rock with that. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, one thing we will say to somebody that if they're not ready to, is their attitude about their body. Like, if you're walking around telling yourself this sob story or negative self, narrative, that comes across to people that you interact with, or maybe you're trying to attract. And that is not a sexy vibe. It's not about the body. It's about the attitude towards the body, the story you tell yourself about that.
Yeah, one of my first clients was a Nigerian, and I can say this, a Nigerian male who was a little bit on the heavy side. And when we came on, we were doing a virtual consult. And when we came on, he said something along the lines of, I bet you think that it's time for me to eat, because it was in the evening. He was like, I bet you think it's time for me to eat, or something along those lines. And I said, well, why would you think that? And he said, well, I'm getting it out of the way before you actually say it. I said, that was the furthest thing from my mind. Realistically, at some point, as someone mentioned in the chat, we have to work on our insecurities before we actually, get ready to bring somebody in. Because if we bring somebody in and we're still working on those deep-seated insecurities, we're going to project those insecurities onto them.
Yeah. We carry our own narrative. And I said this the other day on my own Instagram. I summed in the effect of, the narrative in our head often is what becomes our reality, right? So if we're telling ourselves these things about our body, that no one's going to like me, everyone doesn't think I'm fat, no one wants me to sit at the lunch table with them, guess what? That's going to be the reality you create for yourself. So, I'm still working on these things myself, but trying to change my own narrative, change the negativity that I'm telling myself in my head, and instead just saying, actually, I do belong here. I'm going to go to this Christmas party, and I'm just going to be open to the experience because I belong, right? And people treat you differently when you belong somewhere, when you belong somewhere, or you believe something. Other people start to believe it as well. It's kind of like magic, but it's not magic.
I know that we are winding down, guys. I just want to ask this one last question, and then, we're going to call it a night. Y'all, when you are objectified, what does it feel like?
Well, I mean, I'll start with this one because I'm going back to high school time, 16, 17, 18, 19. As I was entering college, I was a fat kid, and my identity was I was the smart kid, the non-athletic kid. I was in the band, and I was the fat kid. I was not attractive, and people didn't look at me in a way that was an attractive. Like they would describe me in every other way. And then in college, believe it or not, my first year of college, I caught mononucleosis, right? The kissing disease, right? Mm-hmm. And I lost 35 pounds in 2 months. Amazing diet. Don't recommend it. But by me losing 35 pounds, I went back home for like the summer, and people treated me differently. They were nicer. They were kinder. I was getting attention. People were reaching out to me. It was a complete mind fuck, if I'm being honest. Mm-hmm. Now my worth was my physical appearance. And that was such a flip from someone who was the nerd, the academic guy. You know, all of a sudden I'm being objectified for something physical. People were slipping into my DMs, whatever it was back in the day, AOL Messenger. It was weird. Yeah. And it fucked with my head for a long time, because I then thought, I have to be all these things for people to like me. Mm-hmm. And the pressure that is. I spent most of my 20s, you know, living in New York City, trying to conform, trying to present a certain way. It wasn't who I was, but it was like part of my journey to get me where I am today. But I look back at those years, you know, 20 to 30, and I was so lost, guys. So lost, figuring out who I was. And you have to push through that objectification, right? And say, well, is that going to be who I am? Or I have a lot of other great qualities I would like to show you. But, you know, I feel like so many people get caught up in that, where they're this person, I'm the smart person, I'm the creative person, I'm the pretty person. Mm-hmm. And they get so caught up in that lane, they can't go anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when things like that happen, when guys like approach me or have approached me, and I can tell, like, oh, I'm just an object, or like I am a fetish. Like, I feel like I'm like, you really don't know me. Like you that's your perception of what you think I am and what we are going to do. Like, there are guys who are like, my husband laughs at me because when we go out like to the club or places, there's always bigger guys. Like, they're like husky type beer guys. They'll try to flirt with me. He goes, Lamont, that's your type, because they always flirting with you. They're like, I'm like, what are we going to do? And they might think that like I'm a twink, and I'm like, sir, I will flip you over and you'll be on your back, okay? But like, they think that like I'm this little, they say, oh, you're just like pocket size. Okay, right. Or there are guys who are not black, and they're like, oh, I bet you got 12 inches. And I'm like, you want to measure?
Got a hook.
You know?
That's the hook. You're working with it.
It might feel like 12 inches, but it's not 12 inches, right?
When you straighten it out.
I'm just like, I feel like, I feel it. Like, I can see it 10 miles away. And I'm just like, take the time to get to know who I am. Like, ask me some questions, or I am not going to be your experience because you think I'm this X, Y, and Z. Like, go get a prostitute or an escort to do that.
Right.
Or someone who sells sex, but not good.
Yeah. I feel misunderstood. I don't feel like I get objectified. I had to kind of dig deep for this question, and I probably do. I just am a little bit oblivious to it. But something I've been getting lately is I'm getting referred to as daddy lately. I don't know, salt and pepper in the beer. I don't know what it is, but like, it's, you know, and there's been some folks that have locked in on this particular narrative, and they need me to fit into it some kind of, and I feel just misunderstood. I mean, so that's oftentimes what comes up for me in some of those moments.
Josh, how old are you?
I am 46.
Oh, okay.
You
feel like a daddy? Because I'm 41. I'm getting that already. I mean, I have some gray and such, but I'm like, I don't identify as a daddy. Those are not my pronouns yet. Give me a few years.
I mean, I don't mind. Daddies are hot right now, so I'm told. I'm into it. But it's a new thing for me, and especially the demeanor that's supposed to come along with that. I'm trying to sort of refine that a little bit more, or at least understand how that works for me or not.
Am I the only one? I need to talk to my therapist. Am I the only one who thinks being objectified is kind of hot? No.
I can get into it,
like especially like when you're, I don't know, brushing your teeth and someone comes up and smacks you on the ass and says, "Ooh, I like the way you're looking." Like that shit is hot. Is that just me?
It is. Everyone likes that little bit of attention, right?
Yeah.
I get it. I think that's being flirted with, though. I think that's like, I don't think that's being objectified.
Huh.
I think if someone's objectifying you, you are nothing but a sexual object. And I care not about your feelings, your hopes, your dreams, and you can't get out of that box. Like, they put you in a box.
Listen, there's sometimes I enjoy that.
Oh, God.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Talk to your therapist.
All right. Guys,
Aaron, great job facilitating today. Thank you so much for leading us through this conversation. It's really important. There's a lot more to be said, I think, but y'all did a great job with that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Does anyone want to close us out and say anything to close us out on this topic? Great topic, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If you are watching, we have 66 people who are watching on YouTube. I'm losing my voice. Make sure you all go ahead and follow Foreplay Podcast. If you want to see more content from Foreplay Podcast, you got to watch and subscribe to the Foreplay Podcast. Okay. So like the video, subscribe.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Another great session with you guys. I just got a session, so I can say session. Until next time.
Until next time.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.